following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
Hello everyone and welcome to a fresh start. 2018's V8 Supercar Official Series has seen highs, it has seen lows. It's seen Dane Warren dominate in the opening season with phenomenal performances that put him into an elite group of champions, with only his fuel strategies undoing his hard work. Season 2 was all about making the most of the opportunities that came your way, and long-time driver of the V8 Supercar, Marlon McMullen, was able to get himself to the forefront and hold off many challenges to the lead. Season 3 saw one of the fiercest starts to a title chase yet, Rogers and Philsell trading punches early on, but always in the distance was Sam Blacklock, and when drama arose, he more often than not was able to take advantage and steal race wins away and points too. There was always drama though, thinking back to Interlagos where his championship challenge almost came unstuck, with the likes of Forza Onabi and Wayne Burke slowly clawing their way back into contention. There's only one way to find out at the end of these next 12 weeks if it will be Sam Blacklock, who becomes our one and only two-time champion of 2018, or if Al Nabi, Wayne Burke, and the likes of everyone else chasing him down can take that away. We are here at V8 Online, bringing you the coverage of the final season of the year, all live on the iRacing Esports Network. I'm Bo Albert. Alongside me, as always, is Zach Hanlon with Jay Kennedy on the cameras. And Zach, I spoke a bit about the rise and fall we've seen all season long in this championship, but before anyone can rise to the occasion, they must first fall down the corkscrew complex, which is just one of many tough corners to master around this 3.6 kilometer layout.
Yeah, WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca is one of the most challenging tracks these guys are going to have to come to on the calendar. Very difficult around so many of these corners to just make sure that you get that tiny little, piece of track absolutely correct. Coming out of the corkscrew, you can run just a meter too deep and ruin your exit or spin out, or even the kink as you're coming up the hill. If you just take a little bit too much curb there, you can really undo yourself quite dramatically. So it's going to be a real challenge for everyone tonight, but we've got some really great drivers in here tonight. And as always, last season we saw some absolutely amazing performances put on display, and get a good feeling looking at the qualifying times at the moment that we're going to be seeing a little more of that this evening.
Yep, absolutely. And it was last season's reigning champion, Sam Blacklock, who currently tops the timesheets by just a tenth and a half over what has to be said is a very close chasing pack, which includes Corey Preston, Jordan Ross, Brett Loxton, who was actually one of the favorites heading into this season after being very strong in the previous races. And he is just 4 thousandths ahead of Brady Myers, who is only 3 thousandths ahead of Sam Sutton. So that is just the fine margins we're talking about when it comes to a very short circuit and a very fun car to drive. And on a new build, everyone's just trying to, find the new setups, trying to get the most out of a new car, which is driving extremely different. And what's that done a little bit, Zach, is just change the form guide all around it a little bit.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how tonight's race goes, as we haven't seen really much racing with, or not in the official series anyway, with the new builds. We've seen elsewhere that the tire drop-off is significantly more dramatic than we've seen in previous seasons. Often cars might lag about 1.5 seconds off their absolute pace throughout a tire stint. We've seen at some tracks cars even going as slow as 4 seconds a lap slower throughout a tire stint. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. But also fuel strategy might come a little bit into play as well. And I think nursing those tires is probably going to be the biggest thing that people have to get a grip on. But we did have WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca in the calendar last season, and it was fairly late in the last season as well. So still a few drivers well practiced in that sense. But as you said, still little niches in the setup that they need to figure out and try and make that tire life extend for as long as possible.
Yep, absolutely. And you did touch a little bit on fuel as well. And for tonight's race, we are going for 28 laps, but you have to do it with just 50% fuel restriction, and no one's going to be able to fuel save that amount at all. So we're going to be expecting one pit stop, and the drivers are looking for about 30 liters to chuck into the back of their race cars and get going for the final stint of their race. And tires will, of course, be a huge talking point, as you touched on as well. So lots of factors that are heading into this race that could spice up the racing just a little bit. And tactics are always an interesting factor when it comes to this championship. We've seen so many races decided on who does one thing and who doesn't do the other. But we do have an extremely strong grid of 30 cars, and it looks like everyone has just about finished their lap with only one driver on their second, but they're in the pits anyway. So we will run through your 30-car grid, which is headed up by reigning champion Sam Blacklock with he's the only car into the 22s, in fact, so a great lap time there. Corey Preston leads an extremely tight gaggle of cars, which goes back to John Ross on the second row of the grid, who shares that row with Brett Locks. And Brady Myers gets a top 5 and shares it with his teammate Sam Sutton in P number 6. Carl Stokes from P number 7 on the grid with Mitchell Sealak from the 4th row of the grid, and Cooper Webster and Wayne Burke, your top 10.
And then we have Mario Vlasic coming out of position number 11. He's joined by Harley Haber in P12. Ross Rizzo, a returning V8 Supercar driver, will start from 13th position. He'll be joined by David Lord in 14th position. Steve Jansen will start out of 15th alongside Craig Jones in 16th. Scott Sislowski will take up on row number 8 in 17th position, joined by Thomas McMillan. And Greg Sharp and Chris Coxhead will round out the top 20.
Bringing things back from P number 21 will be Blake Purdy. Reese Keane joins him on the one of the rows of the grid. Can't count that high. And Reese Keane will go from P22. Mikko Nieminen in P number 23 shares that row of the grid with Warren Pickering. Jacob Knight gets himself into the top 25 with Justin Wallace, Stephen Varga, Andreas Riando Perez, David Miller, and Kenneth Latter, all the way at the back of the straight, because this is a very packed grid at the moment. 30 cars, which is fantastic to see. Just about as many as you can fit onto the grid at Laguna Seca. And Zach, getting the cars off the line there is not easy because it's all uphill.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult for these guys and super challenging full stop in a V8 Supercar to get a really nice start. A lot of guys with good experience in this car, but also a few names in this race we haven't seen so much. So we'll be looking to see if those guys can launch it off the line safely. But turn one's going to be very tricky for everyone. We hope that everyone can keep their noses clean and we can have a good race tonight.
Absolutely, but it is a very hard braking zone into turn 1, so there is a little bit of potential for a bit of drama to start the season. But right now, the only drama is the revs rising to get season 4 of 2018 underway. And ladies and gentlemen, the green flag is in the air, and we are underway for 28 laps here at Laguna Seca. A great launch from one of the TCL cars, immediately going 3 wide, having to go into the pit lane anchors at just about cones flying, as it's Sam Blacklock and Corey Preston diving into turn number 1. Jostling for position, but Blacklock will be able to hold strong as they fight in the background. Big checkup. One of the TCL cars going very slow. That's Brady Myers, and he hits Michael Cracknell up and over. It might not be Michael Cracknell, it's Cooper Webster. My mistake. Up and over somehow. Not huge amounts of damage. He's going to try and continue on as this big chaos CMR car around with a whole gaggle of other cars. One of them is Chris Coxhead, another the 18 car involved as well. And I can't count that many cars. Blake Purdy involved in the accident as well. And now they're all heading towards the next section of corners, but there is a lot of broken race cars in this field, Zach.
Yeah, that was massive. That was about 8 cars, I reckon, if not more, involved in that. And that's all just stemmed from that little checkup coming out of turn 1. And I think it was one of the CMR cars just got into the side of somebody as they came through turn number 3 there. So unfortunate, a lot of people are going to be set back by that. Greg Sharp involved, Nico Nyman and Chris Coxhead I think it was possibly Craig Jones was the CMR car involved in that as well. But yeah, lots of cars involved, and Cooper Webster rolling onto his side and nearly rolling over a few times. And actually, pardon me, I think it was Steve Jansen who was involved in that earlier accident. So yeah, few cars with a lot to do, and that car of Blake Purdy looks extremely damaged. So unfortunately, I'd say that he is out. But a good clean start from Blacklock. Corey Preston's actually dropped back from the beginning. He got a really good start, much better start than Blacklock actually, and challenged him into turn 1. But he's now down in position number 3 and defending quite hard from Brett Loxton at the moment. And I've just noticed as well, Sam Sutton, even in qualifying, his car has been blinking very dramatically for the last couple of minutes. So we'll have to see if his connection can be stable enough to keep him in position number 5 for the time being. But yeah, Blacklock doing a good way to get away at the moment. And Corey Preston's going to have to find the pace a little bit if he wants to keep ahead of Brett Loxton here.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is a long run uphill, and that slipstream does help them a little bit, but just not anywhere near close enough for Brett Loxton on this occasion, as he just locks up the inside front just a little bit, which we have been seeing a lot more in this most recent build. The car's just locking it up, pinching insides just a little bit, as Mario Vlasic coming under pressure from David Lord, who sticks his nose up the inside, trying to get that position, but can't do anything about it now. Stuck on the outside. Might try and get a nice run, see if he can get a move done into this final corner. But at the moment, Vlasic doing a great job, and look on the outside. It's 3 wide, big dive from Harley Haber up the inside, and he will just about get in contact, just about made on the exit as well. But a fantastic move, it must be said, for Harley, who makes his way now up into another spot. So up to 11th now, but it's all going to be on for Young and Old. It's a turn 1 as it's side by side, which includes the driver of Thomas McMillan and the TCL car, David Lord. Ross Rizzo involved as well, who dives up the inside there and gets that position cleared. David Lloyd under pressure now from McMillan, who's in the grass and almost losing the car a little bit there as well. So McMillan lucky to get away with that, but right now this is a very angry pack, and Mario Vlasic is just a little bit of a cork in the bottle. We've seen him do plenty of races in this series before, but he's always been, it has to be said, just outside the reach of the top 15. As McMillan is going for a move, couldn't do it, almost contact with David Lord there. But at the moment, this battle pack is definitely one to keep an eye on. Vlasic with a bit of damage, not the quickest driver either. And Harley Haber, very, very feisty driver, we know. A bit controversial at the best of times, but right now, the only controversy he is causing is to Vlasic's position, as he gets one spot done, and he goes through the gravel a little bit, and you can pick up a slowdown through there, so Haber does have to be careful. But it's all change at the front of this little battle pack, and Vlasic continues to lose just a bit of time, as Mitchell Sielak now with a slowdown.
Yeah, Harley Haber's had a good
in the background, David Lord.
Up there, David Lord, who was under some extreme pressure in that battle pack and falling down, just made a bit. I think he just made a mistake as he was coming out of that corner there. Yeah, just got a little bit happy on the gas. Oh, actually, got a little bit of a push. Pardon me, Thomas McMillan just gave him a tiny bit of a push as they were coming through that corner there, and very unfortunate there for David Lord. But Harley Haber pulled off a great move down there on Rizzo and Lord earlier, and now he's got himself a little bit of breathing room, and he can start making his way up to Sielak, Myers, and Stokes. And these guys as well, Stokes and Myers, they're starting to get together a little bit too, as Stokes just has a little bit of a lockup coming through turn number 5 there. It's going to put him under a little bit of pressure as they come down into the corkscrew. If Brady can get a nice run down the Rahal straight, even though it's not much of a straight, a bit more of a kink, but not quite able to do anything.
Oh, sorry, we do have a big incident in the background. It was 3 wide heading into turn 5. It involves Greg Sharp, involves Stephen Varga and Warren Pickering as well. And that was a big move there, and a lot of cars involved in that one, even more bent panels, and that's created a lot of position changes. And for David Lord, that's really unfortunate, because of course he had that incident a little bit earlier in the last lap, and all of a sudden he finds himself in a bunch of chaos down the order.
Yeah, he's already dropped 7 positions at the moment, and that could even turn to even more as he comes across the timing line this next time by. So not a good start for David Lord, but Brady Myers now having a look down the inside of Kyle Stokes and does a good, nice, clean move there. Job done for Brady Myers. So he's now got some breathing room up to It's hard to get a lock on Sam Sutton there because he keeps on blinking in and out, but it is Sam Sutton currently holding position number 6. Wayne Burke has been a man on a move. He started 10th. He's already up 5 positions into P number 5. So fantastic from Wayne Burke. And Vlasic has also now lost another spot, another 2 spots actually in that battle pack. He's lost out to Sislowski and McMillan, who have made their way through. So a lot of battling happening now and a couple of little gaps starting to form. But I think fast people are starting to get through now and starting to claw their way back up to where they should be.
Yeah, well, Brady Myers was doing a good job to make his way through the order, but Kyle Stokes has now all of a sudden found his way back past, and I think that was actually just Brady Myers just locking up unusually into the farthest left-hander before the Ray Hall straight, and that's not a place you often see cars locking up. It's not the biggest braking zone in the world, so maybe just struggling a bit with setup is actually now Kyle Stokes picking up the inside front quite a lot as well. So this battle pack is definitely the case of drivers just locking up at the moment, but you did make a very solid point about Wayne Burke, who has had some very good pace and has been, really making his way through the field, because at the moment, the Synergy Sim Racing cars do have pace, and Jordan Ross has been able to keep that gap to Sam Blacklock at just about over a second. So if, there's going to be tyre strategies that will play into this race a little bit later on. There'll be fuel strategies as well. This fight for the race win, Blacklock has a good lead at the moment, but this race win is by no means sealed at the moment, because this battle pack is still very, very close, and a lot of quick drivers are making their way through the field.
Yeah, and a lot of quick drivers are still, they're only 5 seconds off the lead at the moment. Wayne Burke only 5.5 seconds off the lead. And we've seen some incredible speed out of Wayne throughout many series of the iRacing official V8 Supercar series and in other league series in the V8 as well. And honestly, if I had to pick someone who I thought was really going to make a push to take the championship this season, I think Wayne Burke is definitely someone that you should keep an eye on because he's been there or thereabouts for a very long time. And I think it's about time that he really sealed the deal. And those Synergy Sim Racing cars, as you said, they are very fast. Jordan Ross up there in position number 2, just holding on to the back of Sam Blacklock. So a lot of good things going on within that team. And Wayne putting down some good laps at the moment. Not quite as fast as Sam Blacklock that time around, about half a second off. Jordan Ross, though, his teammate, is currently the fastest car on the circuit. And he's lapping at the moment about half a second faster than his teammate. So Wayne maybe just trying to keep those tires a little bit cool for the second half of this first stint, so he has something to use towards the end. But already, I mean, tire drop-off's not actually as dramatic as I was expecting in these first 7 laps now. Only about half a second off their absolute pace at the moment, but we are on a fairly low track temp of 28 degrees, so maybe we'll see as they get longer into this first stint that those times start dropping off a little more dramatically.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll wait and see how that does pan out, because the tyres will begin to fall off a cliff just a little bit as we focus our attention on Kyle Stokes, who continues to have his rear wing just absolutely hounded by Brady Myers, who got the position before but couldn't hold on to it for all too long. So Myers has to do it a second time, and now Kyle Stokes knows where Myers' car is quick. He knows where he likes to go for passes. So it's going to be a little bit harder this time around for Brady to get this move done, but under the brakes, you can see it's just a little bit stronger right underneath the rear wing there of the Trackstar Synergy Sim Racing car, as they now make their way down the long front straight where slipstream opportunities are aplenty, and just getting closer and closer. Will he go for a dive up the inside? Of course he will, down up there, and makes the apex, but he runs a little bit deep, gets a bit on the inside front, locking it up, but manages to make the second apex crucially and holds that spot. Stokes just pulling out a little bit, just having a look at getting a retaliatory pass, but could not make it happen, as Cooper Webster has now retired his car after that first lap incident where he went up and over, so that's a shame to see. But Kyle Stokes and Brady Myers still very close on track, and these two have driven against each other quite a lot, so I wouldn't be surprised if this battle pack just rages on a little bit longer. But at the moment, Stokes' attention has to turn to his rearview mirror, because Mitchell Silak is there as well, and he's a driver we haven't seen all too often. He comes and goes every now and then, but when he does arrive on the scene, Zach, he's always extremely competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen a lot of these guys coming out week after week and putting on some fantastic performances, and he is definitely one that you always need to keep an eye out for, because not always performing at at the very best all the time, but when he is on form, he is definitely very exciting to watch. So we'll hope that he can start progressing his way through a little more and catch back up. But Brady Myers doing a very good job there in what is now position number 7. He's got a bit of a gap to make up to the car ahead of Sam Sutton, his teammate. But Sam's not falling away from Wayne Burke at the moment. And Wayne lapping pretty slowly comparatively to the cars ahead of him. But Brett Loxton now and Corey Preston, these are two guys that race very hard. We saw Brett Loxton getting in a few biffs last season, and we saw Corey Preston taking to the sky a few times as well, with or without assistance. So we'll have to see how he gets on. Position number 3, really good showing though for Corey Preston. Unfortunately, he lost that spot to Jordan Ross earlier on in the race. Still showing some fairly good pace though, lapping within 3/10 of the cars ahead of him. So definitely not race over for him. And we are starting to see now that even the leaders are starting to drop off their lap times just a little bit. But Wayne Burke has had to give up another position, and it's to Sam Sutton, who he did manage to overtake before. I'm not sure if Wayne possibly had a bit of a mistake there, which allowed Sutton through. And looks like he got a good run. Looks like Sam actually just got a really good run coming through the kink, and Wayne not so much, and got him up into the corkscrew. So good job there by Sutton. But also very difficult for Wayne Burke to be racing against Sutton, because Sutton has just been blinking in and out. I don't think I've seen a car blink in and out as much as Sam Sutton is, and actually managed to maintain a connection. So I fear that that's not going to last forever for Sam, or it's either going to come good. But very difficult times for Wayne Burke, having to put up with that. So he might just sit behind Sam for the rest of this stint. They're racing within, you know, a few tenths of a lap of each other, obviously, because they've been passing each other. But he might just sit behind. The pit window will open up within the next few laps, and he might see if he can get that pass done in the pits and start making some ground up towards those ahead of him.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said that that Sam Sutton got a fantastic run out of that, fast left-hander, and I'm just trying to think of where Sutton actually was. I could not see him at all. So those internet connections cannot be easy for Wayne Burke to be dealing with at all. But Burke's bigger issue is that there is a train just behind him, and it is slowly getting closer and closer. Brady Myers leads it, and Mitchell Sealak is now second in the queue of cars after a nice move down into turn number 1 on Kyle Stokes. And Stokes continues just to fall back a little bit, but we know how strong of a driver he can be, as I see one of the TTL cars. No, sorry, my mistake. That's Wayne Burke, who does do exactly what you said, Zach, and he wants to get away from Sam Sutton as quick as he can, and the pit stops are a pretty good opportunity to do just that.
Yeah, well, he's lapping about 1.4 seconds slower than he was at the beginning of the race. So he's obviously got to come in and do something about that. And that might cause a few people here to pull the trigger and cover him off. I think Sam Sutton is quite likely. Brett Loxton and Corey Preston, I don't really know if they're thinking about it too hard, but it was about a 4-second gap from Burke and Sutton to Preston and Loxton. So have to see where Wayne comes out here. It doesn't look like he's going to come out into any traffic, so long as he manages to beat the car of Andres Redondo Perez down into the exit of turn number 1. It's going to be difficult for him. He does have the tighter line to take, but it is going to be a race out, and Wayne's going to try and cover that off, and he does make that. So that's definitely better for Wayne Burke. Does have some slower cars up ahead of him, which he's going to catch pretty quickly, but hopefully they'll pull the trigger pretty soon as well, and they'll get off those Dunlops and onto some freshies so that they can pull off a bit of a similar strategy. But Wayne Burke's the man to watch at the moment, and we'll have to see if anyone pulls the trigger at the front, and they do. Brett Loxton has decided to come in. Corey Preston, however, has not, nor have Jordan Ross or race leader Sam Blacklock, but a couple of others have come in. Sam Sutton, Brady Myers, Mitchell Sealak. So all the guys that were around the area that Wayne Burke were have all decided to come in, and we'll have to see how this plays out for Wayne Burke, because this could pay real dividends for him right here.
Yeah, absolutely. And the undercut is something you have to keep an eye on, because 1.4 seconds, I think you said, was the delta at the moment. And that is not a gap you can be, just mucking around with. As actually, I think that Burke's had a slowdown, and that's completely destroyed any chance of benefiting from this. I was going to say that 1.4 seconds could leap him up the order very, very quickly. He's just absolutely thrown it away instantly, which is a big shame to see. And you can see that he's actually going to potentially come out around Brady Myers and Mitchell Selak, and looks like he might just split the two TTL cars. So that is a big loss, especially when you consider that Loxton, who he would have been potentially right with, is already into turn 3. So that is a lot of time lost for Wayne Burke, and that maybe, just maybe, could be race over.
Yeah, very much so. But those are all the things you have to get everything right in these races to make sure you get a good result. And unfortunately, Wayne's just made a little bit of a mistake trying to push very hard. We've all been there, I'm sure, as racers, all made a little mistake just trying to make up that little bit of a difference. And today's one of those days for Wayne Burke. Luckily, though, the strength of field, we have a very big field here tonight, so the strength of field is not particularly high, probably similar to what we would, maybe a little lower than what we would expect from a normal race. So championship points, as Justin Wallace just loses it right ahead of Wayne Burke, lucky not to get involved there. But championship points are not going to be extremely high for tonight, so this could be one of those rounds that Wayne puts in his back pocket and saves towards the end of the season as one to get out of the way and put in some other results throughout the season. But we've just seen Harley Haber get past Kyle Stokes there. Good job, good move, and Haber's actually been having a really good race. Haven't seen him in this official series myself personally, but looking at how he's done this race, doing a very nice job. He now heads this little train of himself, Stokes, Rizzo, and McMillan, all very competitive drivers who are looking for a good result here. They're all currently trying to fight for that top 5 position, and be interesting to see who comes out on top here. I think these guys still all have to pit, so they're extending their stints out a little longer, and be interesting to see if they decide to split the pack here as well. And yes, our race leader, Sam Blacklock, has decided to come in. We are at pretty much the halfway point of this race now, so you get 50% of your tyres out of the way for the first half, 50% for the second. But for Harley Haber and for Ross Rizzo, they want to go just a little bit more and maybe carry a little more speed through the second stint of this race.
And a lot of drivers are coming into the pits, like you said. One driver that's out of the pits, though, is Brett Loxton, but he is suffering from traffic quite a lot, and this is critical for his race. One of them gets out of the way coming into the pits, but Warren Pickering is doing exactly what, he's doing absolutely no wrong at the moment, but just slowing Loxton up quite a lot, which is absolutely shooting his race in the foot at the moment as he makes his way down through turn number 1. You can see that's Corey Preston just on the pit lane exit, so he might still be able to get the move done as he's up the inside. Very late on the brakes is Brett Loxton, and that maybe just slowed him up enough to give Preston an opportunity, but it won't be. So Loxton moves himself up a position from that pit stop phase, and does indeed manage to hold on. Now he does actually have Warren Pickering in between him, so he lost a bit of time on his outlap, but Corey Preston might just be able to suffer the exact same fate. So this is what Loxton has to do at the moment, just has to really push, try and make some headway whilst Preston is still stuck behind Pickering. So we'll see what kind of lap times he can produce, but at the moment it is Sam Blacklock still your effective race leader, but he's going to have a little bit of traffic himself as David Lloyd in front, who is not pitted yet, is just doing what he has to do, keeping himself in clean air, trying to run his own fastest laps. But Blacklock on new tyres will come very quickly, and if Lloyd doesn't decide to pit at the end of this lap, that could prove a little bit troublesome for Sam Blacklock, but very much helpful for Jordan Ross.
Yeah, and I just noticed actually that Corey Preston ran wide at turn number 5 and was out on the dirt for quite a long time, so he had to give up quite a bit of time there. And just saw Sam Sutton as well going for an overtake there on Steve Jansen, and Steve not quite knowing where to go or what to do in that situation because of Sam's wayward internet connection. But nonetheless, he carries on, does Sam Sutton, and Jansen decides to come into the pits. So most of the cars now have come into the pits, and everyone is kind of just starting to we're just trying to get the positions sorted back to where they were. I think the only person who hasn't pitted is Andreas Redondo Perez, who's not really in the fight for this race at the moment. But Wayne Burke now in 7th position, so he's lost out quite badly from that pit stop interaction, and It was good to see Brett Loxton as well. He did all that effort that he put in on that outlap was what got him past Corey Preston, because their total pit lane time was just 0.1 seconds the difference. So Brett Loxton having a great outlap there, and unlike Wayne Burke, doing a really good job to extract the absolute maximum and not make any mistakes and gained that position.
Sealak had a huge moment heading up into the corkscrew, managed to get it under control, and Burke's now having a big moment out of the corkscrew. And that was what I wanted to talk about, is that although Wayne Burke had a nice little advantage with the undercut if he didn't get that issue with the slowdown, all of a sudden it's the opposite now. So he's on the oldest tires while everyone else has newer tires than him. So for Burke, it's going to be a long final half for the races. He's going to fall back just a little bit in comparison to the cars around him. And looking at this battle at the moment, and Mitchell Sealak only has 1 lap fresher tires, but we've seen in the V8 Supercar that 1 lap fresher tires does make a difference indeed. And Sealak definitely looking the more racy off the 2 at the moment. And as they just make their way into turn 1, a big lockup for Sealak, just a little bit there. But Wayne Burke really having to fight an uphill fight at the moment. And whether he's in that position come the end of the race, we don't know. But one thing we do know is Andres Ronaldo Perez does eventually dive into the pit lane. So the entire field, as we like to say, has been cleansed. And now it is a straight fight all the way to the end of the race, which is what we like to see. And there are a couple of good scraps a bit further down the order as well. You look at the likes of Reese Keane, who has David Lord right behind him. And these two have been getting a little bit close in the last few laps, I have noticed. And Reese just struggling a bit to get on the power in that DPR Racing Falcon, which is a nice color, I have to say, a bit different to the blue they normally use. But unfortunately, the only blues he's about to see are the blues of feeling a little bit down when David Lord unfortunately passes him.
Yeah, that's looking like it's going to be a bit of a when, not an if. So David's not had the best race. He may... oh, and actually, there we go. Reese Keane runs very wide, just locks up the inside front tyre into turn number 5 and gives that one up just as we were talking about it. So David Lord makes up another position, although he's run wide into the corkscrew, and hopefully he doesn't pick up a slowdown for that. Doesn't look like he has. He definitely has for sure. So after just making up that position, it has to give it back immediately, and he'll have to try and have a crack somewhere else. But another little pack which is starting to form as well. Starts off with Scott Zyslowski, Mario Vlasic, and then Chris Coxhead. Chris Coxhead's one of those drivers who's starting to make his presence fairly well known in this V8 Supercars official series. Had some very good battles, particularly with ERT cars, more often than not. But tonight he's going to have a couple of different colors to play with. He's, I think Mario Vlasic's trading paints hasn't loaded for me, but he's got the ASM car up ahead, which he's no doubt going to be having an attempt at later on. And Scott Zyslowski doing a good job though in 13th position after I think he was involved in that incident on the first lap. He's got a little bit of damage to that car, so continuing to press on. And then Harley Habers started to pull out a little bit on Kyle Stokes, and he's making his way or actually he's fallen off Ross Rizzo and Thomas McMillan as well. So Rizzo actually starting to catch Mitchell Sealak just a tiny bit. Well, actually 8/10 of a lap, 8/10 of a second last time around. He's just coming over the timing line now. And for Ross Rizzo, it's another... Oh, it's actually pretty much dead even for Sealak and Rizzo that time round. The man who's slowest out of all these guys at the moment is Wayne Burke, who is just ahead of Sealak right now, and he's lapping half a second off those guys. So I think Wayne Burke's going to have to put up a bit of a defense in the next few laps if these guys start catching up to him.
And I've noticed he's locking up so much at the moment. He's really picking the inside fronts up at every opportunity. And into turn 1, you know, iRacing unfortunately don't have flat spots modeled at the moment. But, oh, big slide there out of the next corner as well. But if flat spots were modeled, which they should be in the new tyre model, which I'm certainly looking forward to, Wayne Burke probably isn't looking forward to it though, because he would have pretty much a square tyre at this point, I have to say. But he's looking very much under threat, and Sealak is just getting closer and closer and closer. And Burke's just, his car isn't strong at any point now with the tyre difference that he has. He's not able to get on the power as good as Sealak. He's not able to slow the car as good, and he's slower mid-corner as well. So I really do fear for Wayne Burke at the moment. You did say it is a lower soft, so there's not as many points to be had which is definitely true. So this won't hurt as much as it potentially could have. But this is not a great start to the season for Wayne Burke, especially when reigning champion Sam Blacklock is currently leading the field and doing a great job, now pulling away a bit. So as long as the laps tick down for him, he should be okay for the race win, touch wood. But Wayne Burke is not looking good for P number 7 again into turn 1, picking the inside front. Not as bad that time around, but he was still making that front tire lock up, and that's got to be a little bit unnerving now, just, you know, having that tire lock up constantly, because when Silak does eventually fight him into turn number 1 or any other braking zone, Wayne Burke might not have the confidence to go as late on the brakes as Silak, and he could begin to lose positions even faster because of that.
Yeah, and even though we don't have the flat spots modeled as of yet, you still do pick up that extra temperature in the tire, and that's not going to help you when you come up to the next corner. You know, in the sim as the way as it is at the moment, generally the cooler the tires are, the more grip you have. So any kind of heat spike in a particular tire could really upset the balance of the car, and that's going to affect his confidence. And as you just said, if Silak comes up behind him and has a chance to go for a move, Wayne might not have that confidence to brake as late. And I mean, he is locking it up a lot. He's still keeping the tire rotating for the most part. I haven't really seen him going a full stop on that inside front. He's still managing to rotate it just a little bit, which isn't as bad as it could be, but it's still not ideal. He probably would benefit from just shifting that bias back maybe a click or two just for a lap or so, and just seeing how it goes for him into turn 1 this time though. And I think he might have, because he was very, very sketchy on the rear end on the brakes there, but then did just pinch the inside front as he was at the apex. And very difficult to trail brake in a lock differential car as well. Obviously in these V8 supercars, the left and the rear wheels at the rear, they're always spinning at the exact same speed no matter what, because they're essentially locked together. So if you just manage to pinch a rear brake or something like that, you can spin around very quickly. So that, and when you're trying to trail brake a car and the difference of the speed in the tires is that great, it's much more easy to do. So Wayne maybe just has to change up his driving style with this new build a little bit, because you know, we can see his teammate Jordan Ross, and they might not be on identical setups, but you would imagine that they're on a fairly similar setup or have been talking to each other. And he's 12 seconds up the road in only 20 laps of racing, which is, you know, good 7/10 of a second a lap on average. So Wayne having to do a little bit more work with the new build of this car, it seems, compared to some of the others around him.
At the moment, Brady Myers involved in a scrap with Sam Sutton, so it's 1.5 TTL cars. I'm going to call it a half because I can't quite see Sutton all the time. Up the inside, he does go this time though, and this happened last lap, and Sutton didn't quite give him the position, but Myers a little bit more forceful on this attempt as they go side by side again. Almost contact made, and the two TTL cars have to be careful of one another. And I'm a little bit confused at the moment. I do have to say that why Sutton is not letting his teammate through as they get very close to the right-hander as well. I don't understand why Sutton is not letting his teammate through at this point. Myers looks quicker, and Sutton clearly has a lot of issues with his connection at the moment. This is beginning to risk both their races, and I'm not sure that's the best call for Sutton to be at the front of this pack at the moment.
Yeah, this has disaster with a capital D written all over it. I can just see it happening now. So I think those guys, imagine they're in communication with each other. Maybe that's something that they're discussing right now. Sam Sutton's connection for the first time seems to have held for more than 5 seconds without him blinking out. So that's going to give a little bit more confidence to both those guys to race each other. And we don't want to see guys giving up positions that easily, you know, just for the sake of it. As Brady getting very squilly on the brakes as Sam just made a bit of a mistake coming through that final section of corners there. And now Brady Myers has a very nice run on Sam Sutton as they come into turn number 1. We're going to fire it down the inside from Brady Myers very late on the brakes, and Sam Sutton leaves the door nice, wide, and open. Brady just picking up that inside wheel as we've seen so many people doing.
As well. Oh, it's turn 1. There's going to be contact. The hit from Haber as well. That was all going on down the front straight. Sorry to cut across you there, but there was also a slow driver off the pace a little bit. I think that was David Miller, who was trying to give room, but they were fighting his turn 1. Rizzo had to slam on the anchors, bumped him a little bit, and then Haber came in sideways as well and hit Rizzo. So a lot of chaos happening into turn 1 on that lap. And all of a sudden, Haber is right underneath the rear wing of Ross Rizzo, who might have a little bit of damage now, but he looks okay. So may be able to fight on for Ross Rizzo, but that's going to unsettle him just a little bit. McMillan does get that position, and he's going to be able to run away just a bit. But Haber and Rizzo is going to be interesting to watch into the corkscrew. We've seen Haber make a move once, doesn't do it twice. He thinks about it, though, gets a little bit closer in the end than I thought he would. But Haber definitely looking racy, and Ross Rizzo looking a little bit more vulnerable now.
Yeah, and that was a bit of a clumsy move down into turn 1. I mean, I can't really put any blame on David there. He was trying to get out of the way, do the right thing, staying high and wide, but just caught Ross out a little bit, and Haber was very committed for his braking marker and just gave a little bit of a... They just had a little bit of a bum touch as they were coming out of turn 1 there, and that just unsettled Ross, but he kept it together, and he's now got to put on a fairly valiant defensive effort against Harley Haber, because he's been putting on some very good moves throughout this race, and he's been looking pretty quick. Did fall off these guys a little bit earlier and has just used this little opportunity to catch up, but that, you know, that breathing room that Ross Rizzo doesn't have now is a little bit of extra pressure that he's going to have to deal with and try and kind of push down so that Harley doesn't have any more of an opportunity to get up close to him. Hopefully Ross can, for his sake, can just start to slowly pull away and won't have much to do with Harley for the rest of the race. They do have 5 laps left to go, though, and Harley has been looking very good, particularly through here, turn number 5. And as they come up to the corkscrew as well, he's been looking dynamite. Only a car length separates them now, and Harley very late on the brakes, almost going to give a little bit of a rub as they come into the corkscrew, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. It's going to probably cause you more problems than you can bite off, but Harley managing to keep it all on the track and without contact, and now just falls behind a little bit. So Ross will have to reset his presence of mind and just keep on going and try and catch back up to Thomas McMillan after that incident at turn 1. But after passing Sam Sutton, Brady Myers has managed to pull a little bit of a gap on his teammate, not enough to make too much of an indent into the gap that he has up to Corey Preston, who's in position 4 up ahead, and Brett Loxton has absolutely gapped him in Corey Preston. Jordan Ross and Sam Blacklock still out on their own as well. Wayne Burke's been picking up the pace a little bit, been driving more consistently than he has been, is now starting to pull away from Mitchell Sealak, who has been catching him the last few laps. And Thomas McMillan has managed to break away and is trying to catch up to those guys as well. Rizzo's still not able to pull away from Haber just yet. See if Haber can get a nice run through this turn 5 right here. You can see again, starts falling away towards after the corkscrew section, but up until then, very strong and using all of his braking capability just to pull up and try and get a bit of a run on Rizzo here, but not going to be able to do it this time. He's going to have another plan of attack to get himself past that Trick Sim sports car.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can see Harley actually wearing an Ayrton Senna helmet inside the car. So if it comes to the last lap, well, if there's any kind of gap, you know the quote. You know what Haber has to do. But at the moment, Ross Rizzo is preventing all those gaps from opening at all and driving very, very well, it has to be said, and doing great to hold on to that position. Just ahead of them is that fight with Wayne Burke, Sealak, and McMillan. McMillan has been doing some pretty good lap times just recently, just slowly getting closer to the back of Mitchell Sealak. And that was another 2/10 lopped off last time. So if McMillan can do that for the next 2 laps, he might be able to have a shot on the very last lap. So wait and see as Chris Coxhead goes side by side with Mario Vlasic there into turn number 1. Vlasic refusing to give up the spot, cuts across the nose, and there is no way through for Coxhead apart from turn number 3, which is an opportunity. And Vlasic has to give the room side by side once again. And we'll see if Vlasic is willing to take it around the outside. Of course he thinks about it, just doesn't quite have the grip, but he does get a nice cutback, tries to get the run back, and these two are having a fantastic fight, almost out of room. Coxhead forces him right out to the sand. No way through, but he's driving a very defensive line, which opens up the exit for Vlasic. And this is not a corner you go side by side. This is not a corner you go side by side. Contact on the entrance, and Coxhead dumps back down to his position. And Vlasic will continue to hold on strong for P number 14 at the moment. But if Vlasic continues just to be a little bit off the pace, which he has been in this race, unfortunately, a shame to say, but he is a regular, so he knows how to drive these cars. There is still more opportunities present for Chris Coxhead, so watch this space when it comes to this battle as we return to Ross Rizzo and Harley Haber, and there's still no way through.
Yeah, no, Ross is doing I've driven against Ross many times, and he's a very good defensive driver. Definitely doesn't make it easy, but if Haber can just find a little bit more pace in that car, then he should be able to find a way through. We saw Vlasic and Coxhead going at it very hard before, and I'd expect that we'd see a similar kind of setup from these two guys if Haber can just make up that extra car length that he needs to do oh so critically so that he can get himself into that 10th position. But we're coming up to the point where Haber's car is very strong once again. Turn number 5. See, turns in a lot shallower than Ross Rizzo, and Rizzo actually doesn't get the best exit. Now Haber coming up, has to get on the brakes a little early. It's just very difficult, especially in a V8 supercar, to really optimize any overtaking opportunity as you come through the corkscrew there. But Haber has to sit behind for another lap, you would think, at least, because as we can see already, that 1 car length gap that he had coming into the corkscrew has pretty much evaporated, and it's out to 3 or 4 car lengths already. As they come over the line, though, we only have 2 laps left of racing, and for Sam Blacklock, it's even less. It's probably more like 2.5. Been doing a fantastic job, relatively, or basically completely unchallenged outside of turn 1.
Is that a huge moment? It's turn number 1. Barely pulled the car up at all. He did have a gap to Haber, and he is so lucky to still have that gap as Haber drives it in very hard. As we also have Reese Keane, we're hearing, has been disqualified from this race. So P number 17 is no more for him, but we will focus with Ross Rizzo and Harley Haber. There is just 1.6 laps to go. 1.6, very exact. You like how I did that. But at the moment, Haber continues to force the issue. And this is the corner where he has been oh so strong. And he's very close at the moment. Perhaps not close enough, but he drives it in very hard onto the curb as well. And by having so much entry speed, he's hurt his exit. So I don't think he's going to have a go here. But I could be wrong as he dives down to the inside. Ayrton Senna-esque, if there's a gap, he'll go for it. But the gap does not result in an overtake contact made. And Rizzo continues to hold that position. And are right now fighting for everything he's worth to hold on to P number 10. There is always bragging rights when it comes to a top 10. And Rizzo has them at the moment. And Harley Haber wants them. It's not happening at the moment, and there is an even bigger gap now. So that move, I thought it was opportunistic. It indeed was, and Haber now has it all to do with just 1 lap to go. So he'll have to make himself really work in his next few braking zones. We saw Rizzo have a big moment on the last lap into turn number 1. Does he resolve those issues? A little bit oversteer. He doesn't quite meet the apex, but that is a lot better than it was last time around. So he should be able to continue fighting on. We'll just wait and see if this battle does indeed develop. Mitchell Silak still under a little bit of pressure from Thomas McMillan, who continues just to close little bit by little bit, but he's running out of time. Half a lap to go, and the leader is getting very close to making the start-finish line, just going through the corkscrew now. So time is running out for McMillan. He has to make something happen now. Has to be perfect through this fast left-hander. We'll see if he can do it, and I don't think he's quite close enough. So McMillan won't be able to make it happen. But we will turn our attention to the number 5 car, who goes for a big drift, almost too big, as he dips a wheel in the dirt as well. A bit Lounsey-esque, but it's all right, because he is going to go on to take victory in the very first race of 2018 Season 4. Sam Blacklock gets his season off to a great start ahead of Jordan Ross and Brett Loxton. Keep our eyes on this battle at the moment. It's Haber still trying to make a move happen. He's got 1 corner to do it. And how late on the brakes is he willing to do it? The answer is extremely. He's almost got into the side there of the Trick Sims World car, but it wasn't to be. Ross Rizzo came under the pump, heaps of pressure, but at the end of the day, he delivers for a top 10 finish as Vlasic continues to have pressure applied by Chris Coxhead. But the gap and the time just isn't quite there. So Coxhead, he fought for it, but you'll still walk away with the top 15, which is nothing to scoff about at all. Great result there. David Lord will come home just behind them as well. He had a very tough race after being involved in a lot of incidents early on in the race, which is a shame to see. And it might just be our last few battles coming through. Greg Sharp, Warren Pickering, and Steve Jansen all very close, but no last lap dives to be had. Maybe a bit of a dive between Steven Varga and Craig Jones as they fight their way very close and make sure they've got the fuel to make it all the way up the hill on the run to the finish line. But it looks like Craig Jones will indeed be able to hold on to that. And that is our last of the cars making their way across the line. And there would be 24 cars at the end of the day on the lead lap. And staying on the lead lap was pretty hard to do at the end of the day, Zach, because there was a lot of drama in that one.
Yeah, that first lap incident knocked out a few guys that would have been pretty interesting to watch. Cooper Webster, Nico Niemanen, who's someone we haven't seen coming in all the way from Finland. Would have been good to see him put a few more laps down. And also Steve Jansen as well, who's usually a fairly good performer in this series. Would have been good to watch him as well. So a little unfortunate, but you know, I mean, we say they've had a break. They've only really had a week off. But a lot of new names in this series, and you know, that's what happens sometimes. We did say turn one was going to be very difficult, and the checkup from those TTL cars just kind of caused a bit of a kerfuffle, and that's kind of what happened. But there was some really good performances there from a lot of guys we don't usually see do particularly well. Corey Preston, one of those guys, started strong in second, didn't have the best race, ending up in fourth, but that's definitely a lot higher than we've seen him throughout many of these iRacing official series. And good to see Brett Loxton, another one of our championship favorites, finishing on the podium as well.
Yeah, indeed. So the results are on screen, and at the end of the day, close to 40 minutes, but not quite, beating it by 8.5 seconds, was Sam Blacklock, who takes your race win. John Ross in P number 2 with Brett Loxton rounding out the podium. Corey Preston in P number 4, a great drive for him in the end. Could have been a podium, but just got outsmarted a little bit in the pit stops. Brady Myers for TTL Esports makes him home in P number 5, ahead of his teammate Sam Sutton, with Wayne Burke getting in the middle of the third TTL car of Mitchell Selak. Thomas Whelan would hold on for P number 9 in the end after a nice little late race charge, and Ross Rizzo would hold on at the end for a top 10.
Harley Haber tried to give it all, but couldn't manage P number 11. Couldn't manage P number 10 in the end, having to settle for position number 11. Kyle Stokes came home in position number 12, dropping back a few places from his starting position of 7th. Scott Zizlowski fought valiantly after a few troubles and a damaged car up into 13th place, with Mario Vlasic valiantly defending from Chris Coxhead in those last few laps to come home 14th and 15th respectively. David Lord had a fairly up and down race, finishing pretty much where he started, down in 16th. Jacob Knight came home in 17th. Greg Sharp involved in that early incident as well. He was missing his boot for pretty much the entire race in 18th position. Warren Pickering ended up in 19th, and Steve Jansen, after earlier troubles as well, came home in the top 20 position.
Bringing it home in P21 would be Craig Jones, Steven Varga just behind for P number 22. 23rd would go to Justin Wallace, ahead of Andres Redondo Perez, who drove a very nice race on what I believe would be his debut in top split. David Miller one lap down, unfortunately, after some earlier issues in 25th. Reese Keaton, unfortunately, managed to get himself disqualified 3 laps down. Nico Niemanen did pull off just out of nowhere during the race, so maybe some commitments he had to be with, unfortunately, could not finish the race. And Cooper Webster, well, he was just about every direction today, but he spent a lot more time on his roof than on his wheels, unfortunately. Blake Purdy in P number 29, and Kenneth Latter never really made it out of the first lap, which is a shame to see. But Zach, there's a really big week coming up for V8 Online, but unfortunately, we do have to say there'll be no broadcast of the Porsche Super Cup this week, which is at Spa. Should be a great race. So if you do want to get involved in that, be sure to join the series and through all the little forums and get yourself in, because that's going to be a great race. But we will miss it because we have quite a big weekend ahead of us, Zach.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty crazy. I think we're going to be streaming live from Sydney Motorsports Park for the Virtual Sim Racing Showdown, where one very dedicated and triumphant person will walk away with a real test drive in a Formula 4 car. It's going to be absolutely incredible to watch. We've got some of Australia's best sim racers qualifying at the moment, and we also have that added wild card of people who are going to be entering at the track on the day as well. So you never know who might rock up. We might even see some guys from this V8 Supercar series rock up if we're lucky and put down some times. But, you know, Bo, you and I were involved in the original VSR Showdown, which proved to be a very interesting and exciting day to be a part of. And I have absolutely no doubts that this next installment is going to take it to the next level, especially considering we're going to be using iRacing as a platform. Is going to be a massive bonus for us, and it's just going to be a very exciting weekend.
Oh, absolutely. And you spoke that we're using iRacing now as a platform. I think that's a great step forward, and it shows the commitment that the team behind the VSR Showdown have really put in to get that event on the map, because we have the backing of likes of CAMS as well, which is a huge deal for Australian esports. And if you do want to get involved in that event, and then you are in the Sydney, area, by all means, come down and watch some cracking racing, or like Zach said, try and get yourself a wildcard spot into the event. But there is one other event on the weekend which does not feature any wildcards. If you want to be on the track, you've got to be one of the best. You've got to perform at the highest level, because this is the biggest race of the year. V8 Scops. Bathurst 1000. They don't come any bigger. They don't come any more competitive. You're going to see all the biggest names, all the teams putting in 1,000% effort. If you thought they put in effort for the other rounds, they step it up another level. And the racing is always crazy. The entertainment always at a completely another level. That's all we're going to have on the weekend, but it's going to be an absolute stellar weekend. You don't want to miss it. And like I said, if you can come down to Sydney and join and be a part of it all, that would be fantastic. But right now, we're not in Sydney. We're on the iRacing Esports Network. And if you haven't already subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe button as well. But on behalf of myself, Zach, and of course, JK Kennedy on the cameras, thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you on the weekend.
The following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.